there's no reason why it shouldn't be in the Olympics in the next 10 years maximum, in my opinion. I'm biased, of course, but... For me, lacrosse was a part of my life and culture growing up. In the United States, I'm from the state of Maryland, and lacrosse is actually one of the state sports of Maryland. So for a lot of kids in Maryland, lacrosse is one of the first sports that we play. It was also a little bit of a family affair, you might say, because my brother started playing when he was 12 years old, and I was 6 years old at the time. And of course I wanted to do everything that my big brother did. So I started playing around then as well. I played other sports as well, but for some reason lacrosse was just the one for me, especially after I found the position of goalie, and I stuck with it. And it's continued with me here to Austria. So when I moved to Austria and started teaching as a teaching assistant through the Fulbright program, I came here in October of 2020, so we were still in COVID time, and a lot of my first courses were on Zoom. So I had an interesting challenge in being online for some of my first real teaching experiences, and I knew I had to find interesting ways to make the kids want to listen to me. And so one of the things that I did was in every single one of my introduction lessons, I included a few minutes about lacrosse. I would tell them the basics, and I would also usually show a highlight video because lacrosse is very hard to describe. It's much easier to show. And so I would usually then open up a video on YouTube, and then I would continue with my introduction, and then I would open it up for questions. And I always had questions. I would often then follow up with a lesson kind of talking about lacrosse and sports in general in the United States. And the students were always really interested to hear how lacrosse had impacted my life, how I got to travel with the sport in university, and just the role that sports tend to play in American schools, from high schools to universities. It's a very different role than we see here in Austria. So students were very interested to hear my experiences that I had as a collegiate athlete in the United States. When I was in the United States, most of my summers, especially when I was in university for my bachelor's degree, were spent coaching lacrosse camps in some way, shape, or form. While I was coaching one of these camps, I was speaking to one of the other counselors, and she is a program director with an American nonprofit called Harlem Lacrosse. She suggested to me at the end of this camp that I come help them with their summer program in Baltimore. So Harlem Lacrosse is an American nonprofit, like I said, and they set up mostly in middle schools, but now they're expanding into some high schools as well in America's inner cities. They essentially just set up a program throughout the year where students can come and speak with the program directors of Harlem Lacrosse and also learn how to play lacrosse. This is also related to the kinds of people who tend to play lacrosse. As we're going to talk about more, lacrosse started with the Native Americans and has since become a sport that is played most often by middle to upper class families and white families in the United States. So putting lacrosse sticks in the hands of communities who aren't typically a part of the sport is a really, really important thing to do right now, especially because it is a sport that is growing and the opportunities that come with playing lacrosse are also growing. So that summer I spent a few weeks with Harlem Lacrosse in their summer program, which was just a summer camp. We did some classroom work where we were doing English and math and history studies and stuff like this. And then the afternoons were spent with lacrosse. So we were doing drills outside, we were practicing, we were learning, we were teaching, and it was a really, really fantastic experience. And since moving to Austria, I have made connections with the Austrian national team, as well as the National Austrian Lacrosse program. And we have, I've played with the national team a few times at this point, and we have actually started a program recently to get more Austrian students playing lacrosse. So the working name of this program that is being run by the Austrian Lacrosse Association is the Lax Together program. So this is a lacrosse initiative to get lacrosse into schools. So essentially, members of the lacrosse teams in Austria are going into schools, usually at gymnasium level, and working with students there in their sports classes and teaching them about lacrosse. So the goal is for each class to have at least 6 hours of lacrosse throughout the semester or the school year. Come get involved in a sport, be a part of a team, be a part of a group, and have that experience. So that's the main goal of the Lax Together program. When I would discuss lacrosse in my classrooms, I would always say, this is one of the true American sports. It was established by Native Americans. It's played now by lots of people, but at its core, it's a Native American sport. And we have tried to continue that in this Lax Together program that has been organized by the Austrian Lacrosse Association and funded with funds from the ministry and World Lacrosse. When we start to introduce lacrosse, we like to do a day where we kind of just talk about lacrosse and talk about its background, talk about its history. And we really try to do our part to make sure that students know where it's come from and know its origins as a Native American sport. It's really fascinating to see, actually, the sport that's played today in mainstream lacrosse versus the many versions of lacrosse that existed among the different Native American tribes. They had different sticks, they used different balls, but at the end of the day, it was the same sport. And I think that's really beautiful and really interesting to see. I would say that the largest growth has probably been in Vienna. We are hoping to see growth in Salzburg. It's actually quite interesting. Lacrosse was first played in Austria in Salzburg, but it has since died off. And in Salzburg, it's kind of my job to hopefully bring it back. There are, again, a lot of really great people who I have had the great pleasure of meeting over the last year and a half, 2 years, who are doing a lot of work to, again, get more students from high school age playing, get more students at universities playing. Lacrosse has grown a lot in Austria in the past few years. In the last 2 years, it's been a major goal for Austrian lacrosse to get lacrosse in more schools. Austria Lacrosse applied for a grant to help expand the sport of lacrosse further, and it's been a great success. So the ministry accepted the application, and I really believe that they're interested in getting lacrosse to more Austrian students, because I think team sports play a huge role in character development for students, for young people, and also it is a possibility that lacrosse would be played in the 2028 Olympics. So lacrosse has recently been granted Olympic sports status, but it has not yet been decided if lacrosse will be played in 2028. So it could be, but they haven't said that it will be. That's kind of the current situation. So if it does end up being that lacrosse is played in 2028, Austria is going to want to have a team to send. And we have a national team at the moment, but it would be really, really fantastic to get younger students, younger people involved, younger people training in the sport, so that we can keep lacrosse going, so that we have a team to keep sending to the World Games, to the World Cups, to the Olympics in the future. Because if it's not played in 2028, then hopefully it will be played in the next Olympics, right? We're getting closer and closer to actually seeing lacrosse played at an Olympic level. I honestly think that the cost of playing lacrosse is one of the biggest barriers. When you think of other sports that have had great success internationally, let's use soccer, football, for example, it's been able to travel as much as it has because all you really need is a ball and something to make a goal or 2 goals, right? And so there's a lot of freedom there, right? Lacrosse isn't the same. Behind me, you can see some examples of women's lacrosse sticks, and a good women's lacrosse stick can be expensive, and it is also a physical sport. So you're probably breaking these sticks after a little while. They will break because of impact, because of the physicality of the sport, and then you have to replace it. It gets very expensive very quickly for families anywhere, right? But especially if we're talking about middle to lower class families. I do believe that's one of the biggest factors about getting lacrosse more places. But because of this Lax Together program that we have in Austria, we have been able to buy sets of equipment for intercross, which is an indoor version of the sport that can be played by men and women at the same time. It doesn't matter the gender of the they can just play at the same time, same rules, same equipment, everything is the same. So that's been a really fantastic thing because we're not asking anybody to drop €100 on a stick that they might not use. As far as walking through that door and trying the sport out, we have been able to provide most of the equipment for anybody interested in doing that. So I think that's a really, really cool thing. That is a tough question because for me, a lot of sports, especially team sports, you know, the main themes are always the same, right? Leadership, responsibility, teamwork. I think one of the best things about lacrosse is that there's so much opportunity for growth because it's a growing sport. Being involved in lacrosse at this point, essentially there's nowhere to go but up. Lacrosse has been growing in a huge way in the United States, and I think that there's nothing but opportunity there. So for a student in Austria, that would just give them more opportunity to meet people outside of their normal sphere, you know, have more involvement when they do go abroad, and again, be a part of a team. And the best thing about being a part of a team is that you have an automatic group of people to rely on. And I think that's a really huge advantage of playing any sport, but lacrosse especially, since it's growing in such a big way.